You want to make money on MMA? LaTB. You want to know who to put it in your parlay? LaTB. You want to know our DraftKings stay away? LaTB. So, who has the Leslie Smith Underdog Pick? Who was the Mexican dude and the lesbian chick? Everybody say you mean Lesbo and the Bean. Who's that out there living they dream? Lesbo and the Bean. Who's that still smoking all the green? Lesbo and the Bean. Come on y'all, let me hear you scream. Lesbo and the Bean. You wanna make money on MMA? LaTB. You wanna know who to put in your parlay? LaTB. You wanna know what DraftKings stay awake? LaTB. So who has the Leslie Smith Underdog Pick? Who is the Mexican dude and the lesbian chick? Everybody say you mean Lesbo and the Bean. Who's that out there living the dream? Lesbo and the Bean. Who's that still smoking all the green? Lesbo and the Bean. Come on y'all, let me hear you scream. Lesbo and the Bean.
Welcome back, everybody. Loving this new schedule. Hope you guys are too. We got a hell of a breakdown coming up, but how has everything been on your side of things since the last time we've met here? What is the MMA verse?
What's going on in the Twitter verse of MMA?
Yep.
All I can see is the heat on Yamasaki.
Poor guy, but he did it to himself to an extent.
He did it to himself. It's not the first time.
There was a really interesting piece I listened to where Frank Trigg, who is now a referee, who was a fighter, who also judges, was sticking up for him and sticking up for the Chiesa Lee situation as well. And what was really interesting in the whole interview on MMA Junkie with George and Goes was Frank Trigg was saying he was talking about what they do as refs in the back. And they all get together and talk about the previous fights and criticize each other and try to make each other better. But if some people have bad calls, they will correct each other. And that's a really interesting dynamic and factor that we do have to put in there. We don't tout on it as much, but if we're going to be seasoned bettors, I think it's something that we need to pay attention to because those refs can cost us some coin. They can get it. They can get you in the pocket.
Wouldn't you be scared? I've heard fighters, though, say it in the past before this incident that they feared every time if they walked into the octagon and he was their ref.
I feel like there's been fighters that have refused to fight with certain referees, and Big John's come in himself and be like, whatever, I'll take the fight. Like, he's been the one that whatever.
Is it, there's things like the Brazilian Commission might do something to him, and Dana was all mad about him. And for me, I have two issues with it. One, you take away Shevchenko's win, all this talk, that's the only thing people are talking about. And to me, everybody should be talking about the bullet. Maybe I'm biased. But the other thing that it does is everyone's, to me, it takes away all corner responsibility.
So there is a chain of command as far as the way most people are seeing it now. Fans do try to climb together, and it's up to your own opinion. But to an extent, it does initially start with the matchmaker, which is what everyone's saying. It shouldn't have been. It was 1,000 to 1.
I have beef with that. I have beef with it. How many times has Ronda been 1,000 to 1?
It's a good point. And the other fighter has the option of taking the fight or not taking the fight at that same time.
This is the other thing. And, I mean, no, I'm not wrong about this. This is what's going to happen to every single woman in the 125 division.
Oh, for Valentina?
Yeah.
If JJ moves up, baby. If JJ moves up.
And if Valentina Rose, to me, JJ can't make the weight cut, and she can tell herself what she wants to about it, and she can get a better nutritionist and pull a Khabib this time and go in there, and her mentality, she has to tell herself she lost that fight because of the cut, but in reality, she lost that fight because she got outworked and outskilled. In reality. She got knocked out by Rose Namajunas. Valentina and Rose, whatever's going on with them, with their training, they're beasts together. They're beasts. And not just Valentina. You got Antonia, her sister, Shevchenko, where you always say it about you and your brothers. You know, like, you become harder if you have somebody that's training with you. What is
Iron
it?
sharpens iron.
Yeah, so with the Shevchenko sisters, every single woman in the 125 division right now is going to get chewed up just like that if somebody lets them just sit and get beat on. 208 punches to 3, you were saying last time? Or 207 to 3?
You were saying 230, I was saying 217, but I do think it's more like 230 now. I've seen officially since then.
So,
to 3.
At what point does your corner not realize you're going to win this fight? They're your team. They're your team.
Agreed. So,
and if it was a man in there getting beat like that, would everyone be saying this shit?
Some people, yeah, I've heard it before with other fighters, and I believe Lesbo and the Bean retweeted a Marquardt section where there was Nate Marquardt fighting Kevin Gastelum, went to his corner and said, "I got nothing left." And immediately his corner said, "It's over. Call it. Call it."
A woman's never going to say that.
Where
Not ever.
This woman said, my knee, which we saw the first punch
30
of the
seconds.
fight.
30 seconds
She
of the fight.
ruined her ACL, and her corner said, "Shut up. Don't worry about that." And
Well, that's
it could be
shitty corner
long-term-
all the way around.
all
then.
the way around. So it falls on
And I'm not
the
saying
ref,
any woman
corner,
wouldn't do that. Like
promotion potentially.
Like
those
if
are
I
the
was in
three.
there 3 rounds with Shevchenko or 3 minutes with Shevchenko, I would not go back out.
But that's why they're professional fighters, is because they are going to go back out, and they can dig deep in there and just keep.
Who did Khabib fight last? Barboza.
Correct.
In the exact same manner. Don't you feel like would you have been mad if the ref stopped that fight early?
Yes, I would have been upset.
Or if if Barboza's corner threw in the towel?
Not so much, because not so much with the corners. I'm never against the corner, because the corner knows things that we don't know as fans.
What do you think the fight or the punch comparison was between Khabib and Barboza?
A lot less, because there was some exchanges in the striking standing before those takedowns came, and Barboza did get up a few times. So, but it was pretty one-sided for Shevchenko. There's not many fights ever you'll see in the UFC unless those 1 and 2 UFC days.
I'm gonna look that number up.
We're gonna have to figure it out. But other MMA talk, other than the Yamasaki now potentially losing his credentials in the UFC, and hopefully doesn't get put back in there immediately.
I don't know what else is going on. You tell me one.
Frankie Edgar versus Cody Garbrandt is in potentially the works.
I love that.
So
I actually am so much more excited about that than Max versus Edgar.
Interesting. Frankie's just willing to fight anybody. He doesn't care who it is, and Cody's accepted. So I don't see where the bout agreement hasn't come already. I don't know if they're trying to do an interim type of situation or not, because that's probably what they're fighting for, because everyone needs a belt. And this falling out that happened as of late, other bouts that have fallen out, how do you feel like the title ship in general in the UFC is? There's a lot of people criticizing that there's too many fight cards and you're going to get fighters falling out, and this is why you got to pull it back a little bit so you can have other fighters potentially on reserves. Or should the UFC have backup undercard fighters that are good enough to step up into that position initially?
I think part of the problem with the UFC is they have no schedule. They're all over the place. They're grandpa's eyebrows. You don't know if it's going to be on a Thursday, on a Sunday. Most of the time it's on a Saturday. Most of the time it's Saturday at 10, but not always. Sometimes it's 3 a.m., sometimes it's 3 p.m., sometimes you really can't set your life around it like you can with other sports. Right. You don't know that every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 going to have a basketball game. And I know your team moves around, but there's usually, I guess basketball's kind of all week. But Are we trying to get to that level? Or are we trying to have an elite sport? I think they have to figure out what their idea is of where they want to go. Do we want fighting every week? Because I'm quality over quantity.
I would agree with that a little bit as well. I think that 38 to 40 range is just right. Is just the perfect amount of time.
I agree. I like 36. 3 a month.
Yep.
1 week off a month. And then quarterly maybe 3 pay-per-views a year and make them beasts and have the alternates set up. Allow for when those people come on and they're like, hey, like Luke Rockhold did, if one of them fall out, I'm ready.
Yep.
I'm ready. And
look at what happened.
Yeah.
Look at what happened. Look at what we're going to get.
Belt that shouldn't exist.
So I feel like that's what's happening. But with the other belt contention stuff that's going on, supposedly Tyquill Woodley, I love the moniker that Colby has given him, and that whole little wrestling job he did on the Twitterverse was really funny. I recommend watching it. But either way, T Wood is supposedly almost finalized the fight with Nate Diaz himself for a potential belt defense from a fighter who hasn't fought in over 2 years, who lost to a belt holder. Like, to me, as a devoted fan, this makes no sense. I understand that they can sell it because of the name value. They're bringing Nate's the name in this. He's the A side in that fight, even though he's consistent.
All day.
It's a hard, big step up in weight at 170 for Nate, but it is that money fight that he wants.
Are you kidding? He was 200 pounds when he was fighting Connor.
But with Nate, does he deserve it? He lost his last fight. Does he deserve another belt contention immediately?
Maybe WME will give him this, in quotes, respect that he never felt like he got from the Fertitta brothers and Dana, and they realize he's a name.
So he's just a ever belt contender? Doesn't matter, win or loss. He's a never belt. Like, he'll just contest for 55 as soon as a 55
I don't necessarily agree with it, but don't you think he's kind of that GSP level? Not necessarily in skill, but name, where he's one of those guys that just gets to walk in and fight Bisping for the belt?
I do, but I do also feel like that welcome, it's wearing his way thin. Like, he's not the only bad boy, where it used to be him and his brother were the only guys that were assholes. Now there's a bunch of them. Now there's way more people that
They're authentic, though, in a way that, like, Colby Covington isn't.
That's true. It's true. And they really could walk away from it all, but they have such good skills. It's a really unique situation. I don't like the immediate title contender, though. I feel like there's so many other guys in that division that deserve a shot. Kamaru Usman.
If he gets the belt, though, it does set up an interesting dynamic for the return of McGregor. Which is really what the whole company is built around.
There's no way T Wood's losing that fight. Guarantee it. You can max bet that. I'll put max units on that bet, T Wood.
What beats a wrestler?
Cardio and strength. So you can go about it a different ways. There's many ways to skin a cat.
You would say, though, Nate has all those ways. He has a good rubber guard.
Sure.
He has great cardio. He can take a punch.
Ooh. It's a heavy puncher he's dealing with.
I agree with everything you're saying.
He doesn't have no
devil's
takedowns.
advocate.
And there's no takedowns for, like, the Diaz brothers have very, very bad takedowns. So that ground attack will only get there if T Wood wants to go there. And what did he do against Damian Maia? Stood up for 5 rounds. Didn't give a shit. Kept that belt.
And Nate will stand up for 5 rounds.
Yeah.
I just mean in the danger spot.
Sure.
To me, he'd be in more danger on the ground with T Wood.
Sure. But either way, I hate that fight. I think there's so many other
I'd rather watch GSP versus Woodley all day.
A million times. A million times. But even then, again, the slew of 170 fighters. Ponzinibbio's in there. Fucking Strickland's in there. I could keep going. There's just so many up and young coming contenders in the division.
This was the thing. It looks like for strikes, 162 to 47. And significant strikes for Nurmagomedov or Barboza.
162 over 47?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what this 11, 19, and 10 and 4 are, but ish. Let's see what this top one says. Oh, I'm sorry. 154 to 25. That's the total strikes.
Not as much. Still, that was still percentage-wise higher than fucking...
No, it's not as much, but at what point is it your fighter is no longer in contention for the win here. There's nothing that's going to get your guy the win except a knockout. And is it worth the damage?
Right. Well, The damage is done, so we must move along and heal from all them situations. We have a hell of a fight card coming
Are
up.
we moving on to 221?
I think it is about that time. We got a pay-per-view coming up this weekend.
And if you're liking the Wednesday Night LaTB Lounge, make sure you like and subscribe.
Always remember to. But for this breakdown, we're coming out of Perth, Australia, out of the Perth Arena. Again, a 12-card bout being on Fight Pass, FS1, and then to a pay-per-view, which, for me, when I find out that the main event switches to an interim belt and both fighters on the main event said, let's just make this a Fox card, I don't see why people are going to pay for this bout. I don't see why people are going to come out. There's a fun few fights in here, but this is going to be not the best night of fights we ever seen in our lives. The main event is a quality main event, but pay-per-view, how do you feel about the pay-per-view giving?
It should not be a pay-per-view. This is part of the issue. They are having too many of these that when there is a good fight card, they're only like twice a year now. And when they're putting all their eggs in one basket where you have all these people holding up divisions that are either injured, not going to fight, or not going to fight the guy that's healthy right now because they happen to be on the same schedule. Like, what's Dillashaw and DJ? Mm-hmm. Are we ever going to figure out what's going on with that? Are we ever going to figure it out? I want to see Dillashaw fight again. I would like to see Demetrius fight someone that maybe could beat him. I like that question in the air. Can we see this fight? See, even that's more interesting than this card. I don't even care about Rockhold Romero.
So that is the main 5-round fight of the night.
If it was a Fox card, I'd be like, we have a really good Fox card this week. This is free fights, everyone.
With this being in Perth, Australia, and both main event fighters coming in from different countries, don't you think that affects a little bit? I really love the Brazil versus the world theme, and I feel like they were trying to do the Australia, New Zealand scene versus the world here, and that there is people that could be in that main event, Mark Hunt, but he's had so many issues with the UFC that I think they're kind of saying, fuck you, Mark Hunt, you're not going to main event any of our cards anytime soon. What do you think about that assessment? How do you feel like that goes down?
Oh, Mark Hunt. I like that he's a local guy somewhat. You know, the New Zealand Kiwi out close enough to Australia. But I just don't know if he is the main event on a pay-per-view anymore. Luke Rockhold is kind of a bigger name.
Yoel has a lot of viewers. I think he has a lot of qualities.
Soldier of God. He carries a whole country.
Right.
He is this Cuba man. Michael Bisping.
Quick shout out before we get into the first fight. As you were saying, New Zealand. Quick shout out to New Zealand, getting some new listens out of there. New York, you also been stepping it up. No, you hate yourself some Tom Brady, and maybe that's what it was, or maybe you just have good taste in some LaTB at ya. Some runners up though. UK, we're starting to get more and more listens out of there. Thank you for following along. Tell your friends.
UK.
And of one of the biggest countries in the world, Texas, definitely stepping up their game.
Texas. Everything is bigger in Texas.
It must be that Derek Lewis and all his homies listening. He's definitely
everybody loves
shouting out.
The beast.
So, with the first fight of a 12-card bout, we start the night off with two veterans. With only one prior fight in the UFC, we have Luke the Jedi Jimu versus Dachi Abe. Abe's coming in with a 6-0 record against Jimu's 12-4. Jimu's coming in with a loss in the UFC to Shiso Anzani, and Abe is coming in with a win over Lim 4 months ago. So they both fought in Australia or New Zealand about 4 months ago. Jimu's was short notice, tends to be a stand-up striker, really used that, but his gas tank was so horribly bad in his last fight that hopefully he's really stepped up the cardio game in these last 4 months. I'm sure he has. Most fighters tend to make that biggest jump in their careers in these first few fights because they really understand the dynamic of the UFC and the bright lights. Abe stepped up to the plate though, getting his first win against Lim in a decision. It was a grinding bout. Also a standing striker who has good takedown defense. Both of these guys on the ground, not too seasoned. They don't like to go there anyway, so I think this is going to really turn into a kickboxing match. The power, I definitely give the Jimu by a little bit, but the gas tank, Abe had the dexterity in strikes. Jim Yu's more leg-oriented, where he'll throw a lot more kicks, and Abe is very boxing-oriented coming out of Japan. 29 for Jim Yu, 26 for Abe. Both of these young men are going to have quite a career. They can beat other people in the UFC. It's really interesting how they're matching these guys up really early, but I'm going to go with, and I'm picking for the first time, my card live on air.
We'll see how it goes for the betting.
I'm going to go with Abe decision. This is going to be a split decision. This is going to be a close fight because the gas tank's going to play in here. Neither one's going to knock each other out. I'm going to stay away. Clear LaTB play. First fight of the night.
I totally agree. I'm going to stay away from this fight all day. I just don't see the Jedi's gas tank going that far. I do think the gas tank will be such a problem. This is really out of the ordinary. I think Abe could get a KO at the end of round 3 purely on that gas tank because I don't think he's going to stop the entire time. But weirdly, I'm going to change it. I think he could get a submission because I don't see him having the power at the end of that third round to knock him out anymore and just be over it. So I think I could see Jamu giving up his back, Abe taking it and getting that submission at the end of round 3. I, too, will be staying away from the first fight of the night.
So just for DraftKings' sake, Abe is the favorite on DraftKings at 8-2 against Jim Yu's 8,000. So
8-2 is not a bad price for a guy we agree on.
Good call, good call. So, on to the next fight. We have a bantamweight bout at 135 pounds.
This is the other thing.
Right.
I think we should listen to Lesbo and the Bean for our entire cards, because last week wasn't great. We didn't listen to ourselves, and it wasn't great. We have 2 things. We don't have to worry about elevation here.
Right.
Do we have to worry about dirty Australian judges?
The biases could be there a little bit, and these were some factors that, thank you for reminding me, I did want to bring up, was that a lot of these fighters are coming in. Luke Rockhold himself and multiple other people were seeing 3-4 days out, where we typically know these travel times, the travel itself gets these guys off of rhythm. And a factor we do have to have, this is going to be live, shown live in the United States starting at 7:30. And UFC is adjusting the time frame so that the fights are live out of Australia at 9 a.m. on Sunday morning. Most fighters don't fight that early. They get up to train or something like that. But to have a main event.
If you got there 3 days out and you didn't change your sleep schedule at all, so you still trained at that time,
sure,
whatever your time was, you didn't change it at all. So that way, your normal fight time, if it were at midnight, and now your fight time's at 10 a.m., it doesn't seem any different to you because you didn't change your sleep schedule. You're still in the United States time, wherever you came from, which would be for Luke, Florida. Right now.
Right now. So...
But it is something to think about. That's crazy jet lag.
Exactly, and that's early fight times. But just the intangibles that, hey... these things all help you cash out at the end of the night with LaTB. So, again, on to the bantamweights. We have Torrento Ishihara against Jose Albert Quinones. Quinones is coming out of Alliance MMA. He's a 6-2, also a Latin America finalist. Lost to Alejandro Perez in a unanimous decision, but is since rattled off a 3-fight winning streak against Morales, Gomez, and Rivas, unanimous decision 5 months ago. Ishihara is 10-4, coming back with a win as of late to Rolando Dai 3 months ago. But prior to that, he lost to Artem Lobov and Gray Maynard. And the Gray Maynard was a very, very contentious fight because he was a big favorite, and Maynard really mopped them up in the wrestling in there. So we really thought Ishihara had better wrestling than that, especially being out of alpha male. But there is gas issues with Ishihara that we have seen multiple times, and it's something that we really have to keep as of note. Also, with the alpha male ties, Ishihara's in Tokyo alpha male. He does go to the States sometimes, but now he's out of Japan, and it's just way easier for you to fuck around when you're at home than when you're across the country paying for something. Like, it's just so much like, oh, I can go to these bars every weekend. I know everyone here. So that could be a factor for Ishihara. He's a rude dude who's got a tood and likes to party. So factors. Quinones, we know, is motivated. Everybody who talks about it, Dominic Cruz out of Alliance and Jeremy Stevens and stuff are like, this guy's in early, leaves late. Quinones is an ever-growing fighter. He does grow leaps and bounds in his fights, but the level of competition is a little bit low for him. The fighters he has fought, he tends to decision, and they're not easy fights. He gets tagged up a little bit. His head movement isn't as good as I would like, but Ishihara really tends to also load up on his punches. He doesn't throw big combinations. He throws left hook, left overhand, right. Both of these fighters are southpaws as well. Quinones does have better movement on the outside, can defend the takedown all right, but actually Quinones really loves the double underhooks. I watched a couple of his fights, and that's all he does nonstop. He goes for the double unders. With Ishihara, he has a bit better wrestling than most of those guys, especially with the Team Alpha Male and just growing up wrestling. Ishihara, though, is just so iffy. He could get a finish here or he could lose a decision. Quinones has everything that he needs to turn this into a decision going his way. The wrestling's going to play out. Both of these fighters like to stay striking, so this is going to turn into a 3-round striking bout. It's going to be a nasty split decision. If not, I think I want to go Ishihara, but I feel like Quinones could definitely get a decision out of here with the gas tank, because Ishihara has a lacking gas tank, and Quinones has always had a good gas tank. It's pulled it out for him multiple times in fights. I'm going to go Ishihara. Wait after weigh-ins. The travel time is going to be shorter for Ishihara compared to Quinones. I got Ishihara decision. After weigh-ins is going to be my final on that one. I'm not going to put it on too many things right now just because I'm not too confident. How do you feel this one goes down? Ishihara right now for me.
I have Quinones right now, decision, and there's a few reasons why. Ishihara is moving down to bantamweight, and he's a guy that already has tough cardio in 145, so cutting that extra 10 pounds, not great for him at all. I do like his power there at 135 a little bit, but I'm not really worried about Quinones' chin. So, Ishihara, I think this is the perfect step up in skill for Quinones, and I also like him coming out of Alliance MMA with Dominic Cruz, because if anyone has an old school alpha male plan book on how to beat old school alpha male guys, It's Dominic Cruz. So everything that Ishihara is going to bring to this, and he probably wasn't training, like you said, back in California for this fight. He was training out of Japan, because why would he go fly and then fly back? He was probably training out of his home country in Japan. I don't think that's going to be great for him. He's not going to have what we like about a championship level gym is they got that championship level talent, fighting up against them. Who's he fighting with now? Who's his training partners now? So Ishihara is kind of going to be a fade for me from this point forward, unless he actually moves it back to Los Angeles. That's really, I think he's a good personality for the UFC, but I don't know if he's a great talent, and I see Quinones kind of taking over here. I'm going with the strong Mexican, El Teco, Tico, boom, boom, boom. And I don't know what the costs are on.
So Quinones is 8,700 versus Ishihara's 7,500. That's too much for Quinones, because for me he's a decision fighter.
I agree.
So he has to get over around 100 points for that. That's just, it's too big of a price.
He'll just be a filler for me right now, but I just don't see Ishihara winning anywhere. In my personal opinion, it'll be a stay away fight for me, and I might use Quinones to fill 1 or 2 cards if I end up with enough money. And that's all I have to say about that.
On to the lightweights, we have Ross Pearson fighting against Mizuto Hirota. This is a make it or break it for Ross Pearson. He's coming off of a 4-fight losing streak, being 19-14 now, being a longtime UFC veteran at 33 years old. Hirota is 18-8, also coming off of a loss against Alexander Volkanovski decision 7 months ago, but prior to that beating Cole Miller and being a part of the Ultimate Fighter, decisioning other fighters. There was a split decision with Ishihara over 2 years ago. But Hirota's actually coming in here, the older man at 36 years old. The reach advantage is going to go to Pearson by 2 inches, but as I was saying before, Ross Pearson on a 4-fight losing streak this is the last straw. He cannot lose anymore. He's not going to gain any steam. And then even when he beats Hirota, I don't think Hirota has a big enough name that it's going to really do much for him either way. He's just going to get a harder step up next. For me, the more tactical, better striker, and me and or everybody, Ross Pearson definitely will keep you on the outside of his punches, has a great inside leg attack, has great takedown defense, really frames off of the body well, throws good knees, and has great cardio. In his later fights, though, that chin has really started to come into question. Ross Pearson's always taken damage in his fights, has good movement, puts together clean combos, but sometimes just can't get out of the way of those strikes. But Hirota doesn't really come at you with an advanced striking game. He throws together 1 and 2 punch combinations and really goes for the takedown. He's really more of the grappling-centric fighter in the fight. But as I was saying before, Ross Pearson's got the hips to keep all those away. Ross Pearson's fought the elite of the elite, the Frankie Edgars, the best wrestlers, the worst wrestlers. He's not an easy guy to take down, and not many people can do it. When he's been losing, he's been losing to Daniel Hooker, Stevie Ray split decision, Jorge Masvidal, and Will Brooks. All of those guys are leaps and bounds better than Hirota, but Hirota's a sneaky grind for a lot of fighters. And for either one of these fighters, I don't think it's a big step up. I think they're both kind of on the tail end of their careers. I know Ross Pearson's a little bit younger, but he's just, the amount of wars I've seen him in myself, I just don't think it's going to work out for him. I have Hirota in a decision, and I'm going to stay away from this fight 100%. If Ross Pearson gets it, I think it's a decision as well, but it's death by 1,000 cuts.
Wow.
So, how do you feel about this one? I got the underdog in Hirota.
That is a huge underdog for me. I think the last 4 fights that Ross Pearson's been in, and some of them have been questionable losses. Sure. The Stevie Ray, obvious split decision. Losing to Jorge. It was when Jorge was looking really fresh.
Yep.
Then the Daniel Hooker. Daniel Hooker might have been our Leslie Smith underdog pick in that fight.
Yeah.
Nasty knee. Would have knocked out anyone in the UFC. Other than that, I feel like Ross Pearson has a pretty good chin, and I wouldn't be worried about Hirota messing with that anyway. It's an easy pick for me to go with Pearson decision, and I actually feel like this is a gimme fight for the UFC because Ross and Pearson is a big enough name to put on a prelim card of any caliber. I'd be excited to see him fight. You always know what you're going to get when he's in there. He's exciting to watch. He's tactical. This is a really easy Pearson decision. I don't even know what the price is on it, but I could even see him getting the win. I think he's better everywhere, and I think all his losses are to guys that are leaps and bounds over Hirota, and I don't know if Hirota has even close to the experience Ross Pearson with fights even that he's won or lost. So I'm going to go with Ross Pearson. It's been a while since I've picked him. I've got another Alliance MMA guy.
Whoop, 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 whoop. Well, they keep the train running.
How much is Ross Pearson on DraftKings?
Ross Pearson is, let's see here. Let me go to my crystal ball.
Your crystal balls.
We have Ross Pearson at 8,600 against Hirota. That is 7-6. So I'm going to have Hirota on a couple cards there. I think he's worth his value. I see a decision either way. A decision fight in that. So, woo! Fun night of fights. On to probably my second most favorite fight of the night. We have flyweight bout, 125 pounds, Ben Nguyen versus Jussier Formiga. Ben 10 himself's coming in with a 17-6 record, being almost perfect in the UFC, only losing about to Luis Smoka a year ago and rattling off a 2-fight winning streak to Jay Herrera decision, and then last finishing Tim Elliott in a big underdog. Nobody saw that coming, but Jussier Formiga is an ever contender in that top 10 division. This is definitely a bigger step up for Nguyen, even though Tim Elliott was a title contender as of not long ago, but Formiga definitely is a well-rounded fighter, has power, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, everything in between. Coming in from that Novu Niao, the 32-year-old fighter Formiga is 3 years older than Ben Nguyen, but Ben Nguyen is actually the hometown guy here. Ben Nguyen moved over years ago to Australia. That's how he actually, if you guys remember, he knocked out the guy on YouTube with all the face tattoos that was all up in his face in Australia. And Ben Nguyen trains at Muay Thai MMA or Tiger Muay Thai in Thailand, so he spends his time up in Thailand and Australia regularly, but he's going to be in his backyard where Formiga's going to come over from Brazil, and Formiga can keep a good pace as well. This is really just a nasty fight. Formiga can turn this into wherever he wants to go on the ground. Formiga does have a much, much better ground game, and that's what scares me against Ben Nguyen. Luis Smoka showed us how to beat Ben Nguyen. You get him on the ground and finish him. The reason Tim Elliott wasn't able to do that is because Ben caught him with a kick and then landed strikes immediately after, jumped on him and submitted him. And Formiga, by all means, can do that to Ben, and Ben the other way around. Little interesting stat that Evil Twin was really boasting about with Ben Nguyen was Ben Nguyen is 10 of 11 of his last fights, all of them being on Australia. Only fight he's ever lost was when he was not in Australia, and that was against Luis Smoka. So, interesting little stat there from the Evil Twin. Even with that stat, he's going with Jussier Formiga. All around, Formiga's the better fighter here, but I do give the flash knockout. Ben Nguyen has shown that he has power in his feet and at the end of his punches, and he has good range. In that Smoka loss, he showed that he could take a beating and never gave up once. And this is going to be a hell of a scrap. I'm really excited for both of these fighters. Neither one's going to lose any clout for me. This is just really intriguing dynamic. I'm going to go for Ben Nguyen, TKO round 2. Think I got the underdog in this one too. How do you feel this one goes down?
Oy, oy, oy. I have gone back and forth on this fight more than any other one, maybe on the card so far. I like Ben in so many ways. I think he's up and coming. I think he's just hitting his prime. I gotta think he fixed whatever happened with the Smoka thing. But then Formiga's he's a dream crusher.
Yes.
Formiga's one of those guys that you hit, you see a guy with all this talent and all this.
He's a Moraga.
Yeah, where you don't even remember the loss anymore of the one's hype train that you rode every day so proudly. Formiga's kind of one of those guys. I don't know when he got to Australia. I do like that Ben Nguyen's already been in Australia. I do also think the flash knockout could happen for Ben way easier than it happens for Formiga, but I don't think Formiga has a really rough chin. You know what? I'm going to pick Ben Nguyen too, only because I'm over Brazilians. They had enough wins last week. This is for the hometown guy. I think it lights up the Australian Perth audience, and I think Ben Nguyen is going to be a fun guy to watch for a while to come. I still think Formiga is a dream killer, so...
This is a rough one. This is 8-1, 8-1 on DraftKings, so everybody's in that same spot that we are, where it's like... Formiga should have this, but there's some intangibles in there that Ben 10 himself's bringing out.
And this is the thing, too. Ben Nguyen has heavy hands, where if you look at the last at least 5 of Formiga's fights, none of those guys... Henry Cejudo's gotten his striking together
at the time, it was garbage.
But at the time, it was garbage.
Yep.
And then Dustin Ortiz, never a guy known for his heavy hands.
Agreed.
He's a grinder. Ray Borg, if he makes weight. So
right.
it's... Ben Nguyen by far has the heaviest hands that Formiga's gone against, at least in the last few years. What an interesting fight. Yep, I'm going to go with Nguyen decision, and I if he wins, I don't see it by a decision. I see it by a knockout, nasty knee, nasty kick to the head, maybe even catching a knee when Formiga's going for a takedown. I'm going to move it to Nguyen. KO round 2.
Oh, so we're an identical pick on that one. Just throwing that out there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I said Ben Nguyen round 2. Because I get Formiga.
8-1, 8-1 on DraftKings?
8-1, 8-1. So we're saying a finish, though, Ben Nguyen.
Wow.
So that's worth every penny right there.
Yeah. I'm nervous. I won't have it everywhere.
I won't have it everywhere either.
But it might be on the Lesbo and the Bean card.
On to a featherweight bout, we have Alexander Volkanovski versus Jeremy Kennedy. Both fighters are coming into their second fight. Actually, Kennedy has a few fights in the UFC already. But either way, Volkanovski's coming in with a 16-1 record. Kennedy an 11-0. The Australian Volkanovski, Kennedy being a Canadian. 4 years older is Volkanovski as well. Giving up 4 inches in size against Kennedy. Volkanovski's always usually the smaller guy in this division. Just he's stockier, but he's been a long time cementer and rugby player, and actually used to walk around 210. At 5'6", he would walk around 210 fucking pounds. He hits people very heavy, has a good gas tank, doesn't have the best traditional MMA takedowns, but you can really see where he powers through with those rugby takedowns where he pumps his legs and will finish along the cage or be able to pull your legs out. But as far as folk style wrestling, there is potential for him to be able to grow in that avenue as well. He has heavy hands though. He throws with a lot of punch and can throw into the later rounds. He was walking through a lot of the Australia scene, and in his last fight, he ended up getting a decision over Shane Young 2 months ago. But prior to that, he also beat Hirota in a decision 7 months ago, and also beat TKO Kayasawa. So this guy definitely can go all 3 rounds if he needs to. Kennedy is more lacking in that gas tank coming out of Canada. Kennedy tends to be the ground specialist more than anything. His striking is serviceable, but he gets hit a lot and he doesn't have much power. The thing that I don't like for this spot in him, what I don't like about Kennedy in general in his game, is that he has trash takedowns. So you can be the best goddamn jiu-jitsu guy, but if you can't get the fight to where you want it to, you're not going to win the fight, especially when you don't have the best striking. And that's where I feel like the biggest discrepancy in this fight is I think Volkanovski could just keep the fight standing and spam a big heavy punch until Kennedy can't take it anymore. There's not much more to that. I got Volkanovski TKO round 1. I think it happens early. I think that Volkanovski's a heavy favorite. It shows on tap that he is. And on DraftKings, he's 8,900. So a lot of people are going Volkanovski's way. I think he could be worth it. I think he gets finished round 1. What do you feel like this goes?
Wow. I have Kennedy right now, and I have it because I don't like that Volkanovski quit cutting his last weight cut. And that's part of the reason that I think that he won. I do think he took the fight on short notice last time, which also is a red flag for me because that was 2 months ago and it was kind of a battle of a fight. So I really don't like it when a person just stays in this perpetually long camp. I think their body and their mind need a little time off. The guy looks like a friggin' warrior. I don't even know why I'm going in with Kennedy here. You don't like his takedowns at all, which makes me really nervous because it's part of the reason I'm picking him. I see this just being a grinding style fight and him getting another decision. And I like Volkanovski, but I don't know who I like him going forward against, and he didn't blow my hair back in his last fight at all. What's the cost right now on DraftKings?
Volkanovski is 8,900.
Wow.
Against Kennedy's 7-3.
I might be switching, but right now I'm going to stick with Kennedy decision.
Nice. I like it.
I'm hoping that Volkanovski kind of blows his wad in the first round and we see him get a little more winded when he actually has to make the weight cut. I don't know why I like Jeremy Kennedy right now. I am not a huge fan of... he's at a Team Quest in Thailand. I don't know. I won't bash a camp then that I was about to. All right. I know I'm so nervous about it. Now I really want to go with Volkanovski because I didn't remember any of Jeremy Kennedy's takedowns actually. All right, I'm going to stick with Kennedy decision. That could switch by fight night.
I love the huevos in that pick.
But I'm a little nervous about it.
Hey, you got to take risks. You got to pay to play. So, as we go down the fight card, we have Rob Wilkinson greeting the debut fighter, Israel Adesanya, or the Style Bender. Against the Razor. Stylebender, I've heard his name multiple times in the underground scene. He has a couple finishes, being 11-0, being 28 out of New Zealand. He has multiple finishes, definitely has a Taekwondo style, but his biggest finish as of 6 months ago was Melvin Gillard TKO. But I believe he's stopped pretty much everybody he's faced. Against Rob Wilkinson, coming in with an 11-1 record coming out of Sydney, Australia. He's going to be the more local, but his last fight in the UFC was to Zaire Badrazara on short notice 5 months ago. He ended up getting knocked out later in the third round. He really What I don't like against that Badr Azara fight, I remember breaking this young man down, is his gas tank. He blows his wad, as you were saying with the other fighters, early. He always slows down dramatically into the second and third round in the fighters that have got him there. He was able to split decision out on the local scene, and Badr Azara is able to land heavy shots. Wilkinson in the last 5 months better have stepped up his striking, his cardio and his striking, because Israel comes in here, the style bender, with nasty finishes. He has great takedown defense, has good cardio. He's finished a lot of those guys in the second and third round. It isn't immediately in the first, but he throws a lot of Yair-esque kicks. It's that traditional Taekwondo style. Can frame well and get back up. Wilkinson does try to use his wrestling, and it's how he got most of his wins, but now that he's seeing elite other fighters, that wrestling isn't going as far. I have Israel, style blender, TKO, round 2. I do think this is going to be a scrappy first round. Wilkinson might get on out of here after this one, unfortunately, in this division at 185. Could stick around, but style blender, we're going to be talking much more about him. He's a heavy favorite, and a lot of people have seen what I've seen. This guy is going to scare a lot of people in this division. What do you think goes on in this fight?
I have to agree with you. It could just be the name, or it could just be because I don't like the way Rob Wilkinson looks. But
I'm going TRT heavy.
Yeah, his body looks like he gets tired quick. Just saying.
And he does.
I'm just saying. So I'm going to go with the KO round 2 for the airbender. When anyone's leaning such toward heavy favorite, and when a guy's number 1 middleweight in Australia and New Zealand against a 300 in the world, I got to think at that point, there's a lot of hype behind him. This is going to be exciting. Is it the main event on the... No, it's still not. This is a long card.
This is interesting. Did you call him the airbender? Because I feel like you did.
I might have called him the airbender.
I want to say that, but it's the style bender. It's just rolls off hard.
The style bender, how much is he on DraftKings?
So let's see. The style bender's actually the second most expensive at $9,200, debuting against Wilkinson, who is going to be $7,000. So
that's an easy 9-2 for me to pick.
Yeah, I feel like the finish comes as well.
Yeah, that'll be on the Lesbo and the Bean card for sure. I like the style bender coming out of New Zealand. New Zealand versus Australia.
So on to the lightweights. We have 2 returning UFC fighters. Damian Brown versus Dong Hung Kim. The beatdown, Brown is coming off of a 2-fight losing streak, being 17-11, and the Brisbane, Queensland native at 33 years old, against Kim, the maestro himself, being 15-8 and coming off of a 2-fight winning streak against Brandon O'Reilly and Takanori Gomi 4 months ago. But be careful with that Gomi fight. We all know that doesn't need to be a real fight to be finished. But losing to Polo Reyes in a fight of the year, and also losing TKO to Dominic Steele late in that third round. The Korean fighter, is he the one who only has a year left, and then he's got to go into the military?
No, that was Superboy.
Oh, that is the is it Superboy or Astro Boy?
Korean Superboy.
Okay. They're so, god dang it. So either way, Damon Brown, his 2-fight losing streak came to Frank Camacho in a split decision 2 months ago, and prior to that, he lost TKO to Vince Pichel. But Brown's gotten a few decisions, 1 TKO finish in the UFC, and a split decision to Don Tuck. Brown doesn't have good head movement. His striking is very limited.
Head movement.
1-2 punches. Okay kicks to the inside, goes to the body minimally, but doesn't really have too much power. Kim throws heavy-ass bombs in that Taekwondo style, throws heavy kicks as well. What really hate about Kim, though, is his gas tank. He gasses pretty hard. He can keep a fight striking if he needs to. He can get people off of him if he needs to. Brown is the better ground specialist, but he doesn't do anything so significant that I think he can put somebody like Kim in danger on the ground. Kim also tends to like to stand up any situation. He doesn't sit there and just ground and pound on the top. He definitely likes to keep it standing. With this fight, the later rounds could be iffy, but I don't think it necessarily gets there. Brown, I think if Pichel can put you down and finish you, Kim's got that type of power as well. So I'm going to go Kim TKO round 2. I think the local boy just eats a knuckle sandwich, and it's a short night for him, unfortunately. I think it's time for him to get on out of here. He's just too hittable of a fighter in this division. But I got TKO round 1. What do you have on this fight?
Right now, I have Kim decision, and I actually think this is the fight. If you have one fight in the whole night that you were gonna put $1 on to see if it goes to draw, this might be the fight. I see Kim winning handedly the first round, maybe even a 10-8. If not winning the first round, doing enough in the first 2 to win those.
Right.
But then he doesn't have anything left.
Right.
And that's where I see Damian Brown could grind him down and hold him there for the whole last round and 10-8 himself, even if he loses the first 2. So this is a really weird fight for me. If Dong Hyun Kim comes out and throws enough for Damian Brown to KO him, Vince Pitchell, you're right. I could see it going to finish. It seems like a kind of comfortable pick for me to pick Kim in this, the maestro. And it is more so of a fade on Damian Brown than it is that I am really riding Kim, so I won't put him everywhere. What's the cost?
I'd agree with that 100%, that this is more of a fade on Brown than anything. Damian Brown is 7,700 against, where do we have, what's his Kim's name? Jesus, Kim.
Hyun Kim, Hyun.
Kim is 8,500. Yeah, I'm not going to put Kim everywhere on
That's
this.
too pricey.
No, I'm going to put Kim on everywhere. It's just
he could finish
close.
him. I get it.
Right.
But not everywhere. I agree with you.
So, as we move on to the main event, this is where we get into the pay-per-view. These are the fights that you're going to have to pay for. 65 bones you're going to have to shell out. And if you're willing to do that, might as well subscribe, because you get these picks for free.
You get them for free. We don't ask anything of you.
All we ask is to subscribe. Dare I even say, can someone throw a 5-star like in there somewhere?
We'd love that.
There. That would be unreal. Even a 4-star, anything under a 4. Just send
Keep
us
it
a
to
message.
yourself.
Just send us a message personally. You don't have to ruin our name out there. So.
And if you need to send us a message, lesboandthebean@gmail.com, and you can find everything else you need at lesboandthebean.com.
Also on that Twitter. So, on to the main card. We have the light heavyweight starting off the show with Tyson Pedro, the local Queensland native, against Sakpar Safarov. Sorry about that. So Safarov has only fought once in the UFC, losing over a year and a month ago to John Vellante, coming in with an 8-1 record against Tyson Pedro's 6-1 record, only losing to Ayer Lafiti 4 months ago.
Latifi.
That's
your boyfriend.
Decision. I like Latifi, and that was a wrestling grind that ended up getting into Pedro's head there. But before that, Pedro has finished multiple fighters on the ground and standing. Pedro was also on the Australia show where it was like US, or where it was the country versus country. Either way, Pedro comes in with a very grappling-centric style, gets you to the ground and submits you or beats you ground and pound. His striking is really serviceable. That's where Lafiti got him, because he was able to land a strike, come in for a takedown, and get on top and be the top advantageous person. If Pedro is off of his back, he's garbage. When he's on top, he's very aggressive and moves forward. Fortunately for him in this fight, I feel like this is a setup for this Russian fighter. This Russian fighter's coming out of the MMA Academy. He tends to be a striker, but the strikes, or the competition that he's fighting, is very low caliber, being 33-30. Some of his opponents 8-5, 4-1. But these guys are low-level competition as well. He has a couple 48-second, 50-second wins in there, because he comes in and throws very Russian-esque looping punches from his hips, where he'll throw an uppercut from a really weird angle, Khabib-esque, and it'll land. Those guys, as they come in the UFC, what do we say all the time? Straight punches beat
Looping.
every time. Tyson Pedro, though, isn't the best striker, so it is a little hairy for me in this position. I can't put all of the confidence. Actually, I can, because I feel like Pedro can still, if he can take Latifi's punches and kicks, he can take Safarov's, and Safarov has nothing else, not even to take down the fence, to be able to keep this where he wants. Pedro is going to dictate the pace and position of this fight the whole way. I got Pedro decision, if not a finish. How do you feel this one goes down? I got decision for now. Pedro.
I have Pedro KO round 1. I'm going to move it to a KO round 2. I see him picking apart the legs in the first round, staying up easily. I think he actually has some nice punches. He's definitely tough, has a good chin. I really like Tyson Pedro going forward. He would be my Khal Drago.
Ooh. So I'm going to go with Pedro, actually, TKO round 3. I do think the finish does accumulate eventually, and I think...
What you were saying originally, or back in the first part of it, I think this is a gimme for Tyson Pedro.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think this is a setup fight. This is, the first fight on the main card?
Yep.
This is set up. It'll get the house going crazy. He is a superstar to be coming out of Australia. I think they're building a nice little nest egg of fighters, and he is one of them. He has an interesting look. Cool guy. I like everything about him. I think his fighting style is interesting, and I think he's just going to get better. He's friggin' 26 years old. I think he eats this Russian for breakfast, and I think you put Pedro on all your cards. Never all but one.
All but one. At 9,100, you're going to hope he gets a finish in the round 1 because he needs to get over 100 points to really be paying off that type of price tag. So if anyone decides to go with Safrov 7-1 is what you're going to have to dish out for him, but I think that's a stay away against that fighter. So, on to the next fight. We move on to the welterweights. We have Jake Matthews, the local Victoria, Melbourne native, against Jin the Leech Liang. Liang being 14-4, coming off of a 4-fight winning streak, only losing to Kentai Nakamura, rear naked choke 2 years ago. He's beat Bobby Nash, Camacho, and Zach Ottawa TKO 2 months ago. Jake Matthews is gotten back on the winning streak, beating Bohan Volkovich in a split decision, which I had Bohan. I felt like we called that right, but the intangible was the local boy was in the local town, and he got the call that came through for him. But prior to that, he had 2 losses against Andrew Holbrook and Kevin Lee. Jake Matthews also beat a couple quality fighters like Johnny Case, but Amendola wasn't that big of a win. Jake Matthews has also had his hips shaved down at the young age of 23 years old. I talked about this 2 months ago with his fight. He was just coming off that. He looked good, but he really did had a tough time with the heavy wrestler in Bohan. And to me, he's just getting a better version of a Bohan. Bohan does throw better strikes than the Leech, but the Leech comes with such a heavier grappling game and really drags you down. The Leech has been also going to, what's the camp? China Top Team. I know he's been down in Florida. I don't know if he was coming out of China or not right now, but Jin Liang throws that overhand right super heavy. It throws a left hook super heavy as well, but on the ground where he shines. And that's where people really overwhelm Jake Matthews, is when they get him to the ground and he can't get up. Jake Matthews, his biggest flaw is that he stays in Australia and he only works with his gym out of Nexus. He's talked about it. His coaches have just been like, we'll get you to the championship. We'll make you the best ever. It does work for a lot of people. Now it's where push comes to shove. Jake Matthews is getting, again, those quality fighters like the Kevin Lee. I think Jin Liang's more in that range, especially in the grappling style, where Kevin Lee got Matthews to the ground and was able to finish him there. So I got Lee, the heavy favorite in this position right now, for a decision. I don't know if I'm going to put Lee on too many of my cards. I do think this doesn't go to a finish. I do think this is, a iffy fight because of where they're fighting out of, and Jake Matthews being the local favorite. How do you feel this one goes down?
Everything's virtually identical except for what you're saying. Jake Matthews, how much has he improved since? What else can he learn at this same camp over and over again? So now I just see him. He has wear and tear. He has his hip shaved down. I'm questioning the cleanliness of the athletes out of Australia only because of Jake Matthews and how you were saying bone growth is sometimes something that happens from steroids. We've talked about how his chrome dome is getting a little more forward. All that being said, Jake Matthews is a guy that you assume he's going to have good cardio coming in, and then it's never really great. He always looks really tired and winded by the end of it. I think the UFC put a lot behind him to kind of build him as a star, and then he's kind of poofed. He's kind of fizzled. So I'm going to go with the Leech here. It's kind of easy. I just think he controls everywhere where it won't even be a question, like what happened with the decision last time with Jake Matthews. I don't really see the Leech being in danger anywhere here. I mean, their reach is the same, their weight's the same, their height's the same. Lee's just a better version, maybe, of Jake Matthews. So
the Leech is 8,500 against the 7,400 for Jake Matthews. Yeah, I also have the Leech, but I don't see the finish necessarily, so I'm not going to be too heavy on the Leech, I think, that DraftKings-wise.
I might have to have the Leech on some things, and I feel kind of comfortable with it just because I do want to pick two of the more expensive fighters of the night. But that being said, I could see myself throwing Jake Matthews on him because I don't see him getting finished, and he is the local favorite, and the judges, if it goes to decision, could screw us again.
Yep.
So I could see that happening too. So right now, lead decision. We will see what we can afford.
So as the heavyweights come into the night, we have another Australian native coming out of New South Wales, Tai Tuivasa, exploding onto the scene, being a part of Mark Hunt's camp against Cyril Asker, who's coming off of a win. Cyril is 9-3, 32-year-old fighter. His last win is to Yao Zhao, debuting Hugh in a submission 2 months ago, but he's lost to the fighters like Walt Harris and Jared Cannonier. He's also beat Dmitry Smokliov and Andrew Van Zeke, but that was not in the UFC. Either way, checkered for Asker. He should be on a loss if his record keeps going the way it is. And against Tai Tuivasa, I think this is another setup fight. What we just saw out of Tuivasa against Coulter 2 months ago, the thing that I didn't like with that fight is that Coulter looked like so much ass that Tai looked that much better.
Mm-hmm.
So people are really throwing in fucking tons of money on Tai, and I do think that he has everything he needs to win this fight and win it dramatically, but I do think that steam is getting a little overblown because the competition is still fairly low, and Asker's still on that lower part of the competition level. These are still not the hardest fights at heavyweight, but what we like with Tai is that he brings in that Mark Hunt style with a better gas tank and more dexterity in his strikes, throwing in flying knees, throwing 4 or 5 punch combinations, throwing great traps and counters, and now that he has Mark Hunt in the camp with him, these are two buddies going into war, and I think they feed off each other well. You can't find many big bodies to train with, and these guys got the perfect style. You can see that rub-off that Hunt style has given to Tai. What we haven't seen, though, is Tai's ground game. Cyril Asker has horrible shit garbage takedowns. He is not going to take down Tai if Coulter couldn't take him down, because Asker grabs for it. If anything, he's going to eat a knee or a punch when he goes in for those garbage takedowns. So that's how I see the fight could be potentially finishing. On the ground, though, Asker is the better ground guy. If he does get to the ground somehow, he can submit Tai. So I'm going to have Tai on a lot of fights. He is the most expensive fighter of the night, but I'm not going to put him everywhere because this has one of those fucking nasty upsets written all over it just because there's too much steam on this. You're not going to get your money back immediately, and I don't guarantee that this is an immediate first round finish. It's going to have to be to pay off that 9-3. I got Tai round 2, maybe round 3 finish, because I give Asker a little bit of respect in there. How do you feel this one goes down at the end of the day?
I have Tai, and I'm pretty much going to put him where I can afford him, if not everywhere. KO round 2, and the reason I don't think there's too much steam on this yet is Tai, for all intents and purposes, will be the next Ngannou. He'll be the next monster they build through this weight class and move up too quick, too soon, but Asker's not the guy to worry about. The only thing I'm worried about Tai is I hope he comes in a little more relaxed and controlled this time, but those UFC jitters should be gone. I felt like he came in a little crazy in his first fight. He was up in the air and down and jumping and crazy and just exerting extra energy in ways that wasn't transformed to necessary power that was going to be hitting the guy. So if all that's under control, which I think it will be, he has his sensei there in Mark Hunt, and I also think he's just going to set pace for tonight. if you look at Mark Hunt of recent, he looks like the best in shape Mark Hunt we've ever seen. He looks like the best version of himself. And I know that's crazy to say because he's an older guy and stuff, but I think that Tuivasa is rubbing off on him a little bit, fighting with somebody his size, his protege, his friend, almost in that AKA style, just having the other great athlete, but not in all different formats of mixed martial arts to be going against. I think that Tai will eventually be the evolution of Mark Hunt that we see that Mark Hunt's age won't allow him to be. I think he will be the one growing and changing and taking Australia, New Zealand, that kind of vibe to the next level. I like him everywhere. I'm only putting round 2, but I actually can see it initially. I think his power is so good and Asker's chin so shaky, I could even see it going round 1. So I do think he'll be worth the price that you pay for him. I'm going to put him on most my cards. I really like him going forward. He's my new Ganu.
So on to the co-main event. We have Mark, the better half of this duo in the heavyweight division, against Curtis Blaydes. Well, the better half, I don't know if that's the right term, maybe the more seasoned half of the two. This is definitely where putting New Zealand on the map, the most decorated fighter, fighting for such a long time. We've talked about Mark Hunt multiple times. He is a 13-11 fighter. Out of those 11 losses, though, they're all title contenders and or the elite level fighters he's fighting. Mark Hunt has never had an easy fight his entire career. Blaydes is a 8-1 fighter at 26 years old, coming out of that Elevation Fight team. I don't know if you've heard of them, but we've been praising them as of late specifically. Mark Hunt, being 43 years old, is definitely one of the oldest, if not the oldest fighter. He has affiliations with American Top Team, but Mark Hunt, I know, is out of his own home, training with Tai and other guys up there, not making that big of a travel, where Blaydes has the big travel days ahead of him. Mark Hunt, we know what we're getting with him. He is a kickboxer, can throw all those knees. He's a little slower on the punch. Power's the last thing to go. He still has that type of power. He has good takedown defense, understands how to use the cage very well, understands how to kick to the legs for a heavyweight very well. I think Mark Hunt's leg attack is underrated when he uses it, if he uses it, but I feel like as of late, he's really started to show that a lot. And I feel like that's where Blaydes can really get put apart in that lead leg. Blaydes is a striker who was a wrestler. I believe he was a D1 wrestler, maybe a little under that, but either way, he has credentials in wrestling. Really like his last 4 wins. He's got one that was somehow taken off their TKO to Milstead. It was some drug pop or something, but he's coming off of a win over Olenek TKO. Beating also Omelianchuk in a decision, Cody East in a TKO, and only lost to Francis Ngannou in a doctor stoppage over a year ago. Blaydes is really, in the division, one of the other heavyweights that has grown leaps and bounds in every single fight, and it's because he's moved to the camps, he's got the right training partners, he listens, and he has a great training mentality. Everybody who talks about Curtis Blaydes says that guy wants to be a champion. That's what he has in his head, and he works at it every single day. He's not going to be a better striker than Mark Hunt, and he's not going to have as much power, but he is going to have more agility. He may have sneakier punches, but with the season, with a 43-year-old veteran fighter of Mark Hunt knows how to set up traps much better than Curtis Blaydes and can do that. So Mark Hunt can be getting picked apart in this fight and always land that big shot, and that's what I always have to worry about, especially in the heavyweight division, especially with the type of fighter that Mark Hunt is. But Blaydes can throw the 2 and 3 punch combinations together. He's getting a better leg attack on himself, and he really likes to use the fence as well to try to get people to the ground. He has good takedowns. And we know Mark Hunt, if you can get him down, you can just get him to stick on his back. Curtis Blaydes has that ability 100% to do. Blaydes can have a bit of looping punches as well, and that also scares me against the fucking Mark Hunt. I'm going to go with the young man, Curtis Blaydes. This is a coin flip of a fight, though, at this division. I just think the UFC has a bone to pick with Mark Hunt as much as everything, and they didn't throw him an easy fight, and Blaydes is going to be finishing a lot of people. I think this could go to a decision as much as a finish. I'll go decision Blaydes right now. I could see myself moving that to a finish, though. Mark Hunt, I've been trying to fade you for a long time, and this is just another one of those spots. Sorry, Mark Hunt.
I actually think Mark Hunt could retire tonight, being so close to his homeland, unless the UFC plans on going to New Zealand sometime soon. Mark Hunt still puts asses in seats. People still love the Super Samoan. I'm one of the people that love the Super Samoan. Out of guys this age, I'm trying to fade out everyone except Mark Hunt.
Woo!
Except Mark Hunt. Brock Lesnar has far better wrestling than Curtis Blaydes. And we did see what Brock Lesnar did to Mark Hunt as that went on. I just don't think Curtis Blaydes is as strong as Brock Lesnar to get those takedowns. And Mark Hunt does have an okay stand-up game. The only danger Mark Hunt's in, as far as I'm concerned, is in the takedown. And I feel as if Olenek and Oleksiejczuk, they both did okay against those takedowns. And Mark Hunt's gone against far steeper competition. You have to really catch Mark Hunt with something crazy to knock him out. You got to get a crazy head kick, a crazy knee.
I think Blaydes is making those jumps, though. I think Blaydes is a very muscular heavyweight, and at the team he's at, he is every fight.
Elevation's perfect for him because
Exactly.
it makes his cardio that much better. This is the danger. Mark Hunt doesn't have bad cardio at all and is used to 5-round fights.
Agreed.
So when Mark Hunt can come in and not have to worry about that cardio for a 3-round fight, we get full explosive Mark Hunt with full power. He took enough time off in between his last fight and this fight. I don't want to fade Mark Hunt as much as I want to see him retire, but I do see him catching just with that much more education, just that much more ring know-how. He's going to catch Curtis Blaydes. It is going to be the travel time. It isn't because I don't think Curtis Blaydes isn't going to be somebody we have to eventually watch in this division, just not yet. Hope Mark Hunt knocks him out, retires, and we get to watch his protege Ty move up through the ranks. I got Hunt KO round 3. How much are they?
They are Curtis Blaydes 8,400 against Mark Hunt 7,800.
All right.
Oh, interesting. I'm gonna have Blaydes on a couple.
I like Blaydes a lot. I've been watching a lot of the embeddeds and behind the scenes stuff, and I am a fan, and I like him a lot more. I even need to make a little new asterisk, how you have the wager gauger you do sometimes. I almost want to, like, lesbo naivete asterisks on wrestling, because I just want to give Mark Hunt a little bit of credit from MMA that he knows how to deal with all this, but it's definitely the wrestling asterisks when I look at Curtis Blaydes. I do think he's one to watch in the sport, so it's a nervous pick for sure.
It's a close one. That's going to definitely be a good co-main event. But on to the main event.
Speaking of close fights,
we have the pay-per-view headliner, a interim belt at 185 pounds. We have John Robert Bobby Knuckles Whitaker himself.
What?
Falling out of the fight, which is why it gave us his interim belt. He ended up having, was it staph?
Staph infection.
Not only staph infection, he had the chicken pox.
Oh, shit. His whole body was shutting down.
His whole body. But what I don't get is he came over to the States maybe once or twice, and if you travel along the world, you have to get a nasty-ass shot on your arm that says you're immune to the chicken pox, because they don't want that shit spread.
True.
So, I don't know how that all worked out, but he apparently is now has a lot of fun of going through the chicken pox later on in his life.
Is that scabies? Or what is the
you get
same virus?
It is scabies.
When you're old people, it's scabies?
Yeah.
Wait, is it scabies that makes it hurt on half your body and then you get the rash?
It is. They call it something else as well,
Are you sure?
don't they?
I think scabies might be something different.
I think it is scabies. It's like a rash that hurts real bad. No, there's also a patchy rash. What is that called?
Yeah, that's the one that splits in half.
Yeah. I know what we're talking about. Either way, he's fucking loving life. I wonder if we see him in there or if he contaminates the entire arena. So hopefully herd immunity's got them taken care of out there.
On an island.
On a fucking island. We're about to see some crazy shit out there. With that crazy shit comes along Rockhold, Vorse, Yoel Romero. Shingles. I knew it was an S. Shingles.
Not
good call.
scabies. I had to look it up. I'm like, because I always do that. Even when I'm talking to people in real life about chickenpox
They're
or
like, oh,
shingles.
they got scabies.
And I'm like, they'll tell me about their shingles. And then the next week I'll be like, oh, how's your scabies? And they're like, bitch, I want scabies.
Yeah, exactly.
I
need my
got
vitamin
shingles
C.
because I feel like, that's scurvy.
Oh, shit.
I think that's where your teeth fall out in your
you need oranges and shit.
Scabies, I feel like, is dirty. Like, that's itchy. Like you have a bug under your skin or something. I want to look up what scabies is. Before we move on to the main event, we're going to make you guys sit through. Scabies, also known as the 7-year itch, is a contagious skin infestation by the mite Scarpoti scabi. The most common symptoms are severe itchiness and a pimple-like rash.
You dirty ass. It's you dirty ass.
Dirty.
You don't wash your sheets, you dirty ass.
You dirty.
You a dirty ass that doesn't wash your sheets. You probably got bed bugs.
So he did not have scabies.
So,
he had shingles.
Speaking of dirty asses, hopefully neither of these fighters get contaminated because Yo Romero has a little stool gate under him, if you don't ever remember about that. I thought that was a good segue in. So, Yo Romero, being the fun half, this is actually a fairly interesting fight in Luke Rockhold versus Yo Romero at 185 pounds. We know what we're getting with both of these fighters. One of the most well-rounded fighters to come in any division. Luke Rockhold, devastating left body kick, left straight punches, a beast on the ground, dominates people like Chris Weidman, makes them look like blue belts. Striking can knock out the best of them, has had flush knockouts though, losses against Vitor Belfort, and as of late, Michael Bisping. Michael Bisping!
I love you, Ma!
Michael Bisping! Knock him out. Do you think Michael Bisping can knock out Yo Romero?
Michael Bisping, I love you! I love you!
Is that Yo making a brief appearance at LaTB? I was wondering who the guest...
Luke, I love you, Ma!
Can Yo Romero say, Luke, I am your father?
Luke, I am your father, Ma! No gay Jesus!
Okay, Jesus. So, Yo Romero has a much better chin with fading fighters. The 12-2 fighter, being 40 years old, has, in theory, in LaTB theory, been on the juice ever since he got in the game. Them Cubans have been using that Cuban fruit juice for a very, very long time. Why do you think they're a little island that's been in every Olympic elite event for such a long time? Especially in the wrestling. That definitely comes into play somewhat with Yo Romero. Tends to keep things striking. And he doesn't really shoot for takedowns. Yo Romero rarely shoots for takedowns and has actually been taken down by many fighters. Brunson, and as of late, Whitaker got him a couple times. Weidman, I believe, even took him down a few times. Souza threatened. Where Yo Romero's wrestling comes in the most is in his actually get up. Is Yo Romero doesn't give a shit about giving up a takedown because he can always get up from anybody who's ever taken him down, and you can take that to the bank. Look it up. He'll get taken down. He's like, okay, I'm going to get up. And then he throws a flying knee at your face.
And he turns around so fast, like the person's holding him.
Yeah.
Turns around so fast, backs up, knee kick.
Yeah, and then throws a knee right after it.
And he does what you love. Always throws something when he's getting out of the...
a strike on the exit of his clinches and or breaks in the contact. But where Luke Rockhold really wants to get this fight is to the ground, and that's where he's going to really thrive. He can beat the people like Yo Romero, but the real question is, can he hold them down? This is going to be a very gassing fight. Yo Romero tends to slow down more of the two fighters, but Yo Romero also has that fast twitch muscle that even if he's gassed or even if he has that Cuban lag where he fakes that he's always tired to explode, it's caught a lot of people, and I feel like a lot of people have caught onto that style as well a lot. So the thing that is the biggest intangible for me that I cannot back at all is Luke Rockhold's chin.
I was just going to say, that's mine too.
That's the only thing, and especially when you have the soldier of God throwing knees and bows at you, it's just not conducive for your health. And Bobby Whitaker is the only person as of late to have beat Yo Romero via decision, and it was not an easy win. And that's pretty much the 1, 2, and 3 right here. This is a pay-per-view worthy fight. Probably the most pay-per-worthy fight is this one. Hunt Blaydes is also really good, but the other ones... So, I got Yo Romero TKO round 4, maybe round 5, because I think Yo Romero will be losing this entire fight, but he has the power into the later rounds to end Luke Rockhold's chin. It just takes an over-the-glancing shot. And if we saw that Bisping punch, Yoel Romero is going to be emulating that same punch that Bisping threw. Guaranteed. I got Romero TKO round 5. This is a late one. You're going to have to stay up. How do you feel this one goes down, Lesbo?
Wow. You know, I'm rarely a fan of Yoel. I'm rarely a fan of Yoel Romero. I might have voted against him in all his last fights. Bobby Whittaker, thank goodness, but I had Chris Weidman. I had Souza. I did not have Machida, so it's been a while, and I didn't have Tim Kennedy either. Luke Rockhold, he's one of those guys that was at the top echelon of the 185, and something about that Bisping knockout, it was like he was figured out. Even the Weidman fight, he was in so much danger for the beginning of that fight, and then Chris Weidman threw like a weird back elbow or something, some spinning something that knocked him all off, and then Luke took over.
Yeah, he threw a spinning heel kick that was the worst decision ever.
Worst thing.
Yep.
So that fight cost him. The other thing that really is just sticking out to me when I think of Luke Rockhold, David Branch had him in so much trouble against the cage in the first round of that fight, and I actually thought, oh shit, Luke Rockhold is just getting picked apart. He's totally gonna lose, and I think he felt that too, and that's why he moved his camp to AT&T. This is like his first time out that we're really getting to see like the full American top team Luke Rockhold and see what that's brought to it. He looked a little rough at the weight conference to me, like it might be a hard weight cut for him, and everything I hear is that he'll be moving up to the 205 once Daniel Cormier moves up to heavyweight.
Makes sense.
So this is a hard weight cut for Luke, especially at 33. I'd like to say age alone. I'll go with the younger guy most of the time. 40-year-old, almost 41-year-old Romero. He looks like he's 23. His body, his face, he looks so good.
The water.
He looks so good. And I've been wanting to fade him for a while, but how can you? Look at all the guys he's beaten. Finished
in the third round.
Fights. And then the last fight going to decision with Robert Whittaker, who I think everything's come together perfectly for, and that fight was a hard fight. This is going to be a rough fight for Luke, and I kind of agree with what you're saying, too. He's not going to be able to get to Yoel's back anywhere. And I have Romero KO round 3 right now. I'm going to move it to KO round 4 because that's his rest round. If you ever watch him in a 5-round fight, 1, he tends to lose that fight and lay back. You wonder, you're like, who is this guy? He's not threatening at all. The other guy takes over. 2nd round, he throws like a few scary things, a few explosive things. 3rd round, lays back. 4th and 5th, takeover explosion. I got Yoel Romero KO round 4. Woo! What are the odds on this fight?
2 underdogs. Luke Rockhold is 8,300 against Yoel Romero 7-9. I'm going to be pulling Yoel Romero on a few.
I think we have our Leslie Smith Underdog Pick.
Woo!
I think we have Mr. Nogay Jesus himself.
Woo!
The soldier of God. Yoel Romero, he's going to hate it because I'm going to put our Leslie Smith Underdog Pick and I'm going to put a big rainbow flag behind him. You should have seen how I just had my faggy mouth. I'm allowed to say faggy, everyone.
So, do we have a wager gauger? I feel like Yoel is also the wager gauger. So I don't think we have a wager gauger. I think it's just the underdog pick for the week. Yoel Romero. It's going to be in the later rounds, but he'll get those extra 50 points for the finish on DK. It's going to be a fun fight. Both of these guys are coming out of ATT as well.
Change our mind. Make it worth the money we're about to spend on this pay-per-view. Make that happen, could ya? And make sure you also, if you were playing along with us on the Tapology, that you press save so your card doesn't disappear after you did all that work. And make sure you follow us at lesboandthebean.com and at Twitter at lesboandthebean, and like and subscribe and tell a friend. And we love you.
Lesbo and the Bean!